G'day, guys. Welcome to this week's Hash It Out. I'm CW and joined once again by Armenio and Noah. How are we, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Doing well.
For this week's Hash It Out hot topic, we're going to be talking about marketing, and specifically in the crypto industry. We can often see some outlandish claims, and both on APY fronts, smoke and mirrors, and all kinds of bits and pieces. So let's hash that one out.
Well, it's Joe's favorite topic.
Let's scale it to reality, okay? Like an example, the hot trend right now. Ooh, it's super sexy. Is like AI coins because of Chat GPT, right? It came out, now it's like this super popular thing, and you have AI projects out there, and I don't know of any of them that have actually delivered a lot. I'm not going to say that they don't have that potential, or it's not an interesting use case, right? But in terms of where we are today as it stands, there's not much there. If you actually dig into the back end and the functionality, and that doesn't matter, right? It's the trend.
It's all about the narrative.
It's all about the narrative, and sometimes the narrative is so stupid. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it's we saw this over and over and over again in crypto, where it's like the metaverse, and it's like dump $1 billion into a project and there's 6 people there, right?
Yeah.
And it looks
you got 6 users and they're all probably like 14.
Yeah, and it looks like something
their
from
mom's credit card to buy an NFT.
So we have to scale it. We have to scale it to I don't know, present reality, and marketing. How do I say this? There's always this social push for hyper-capitalization, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's, there's no other way to put it. It's like, let's all, get excited and then hyper-capitalize something that may not have a lot of use or value or maturity yet.
When you say hyper-capitalization, what does that mean?
Okay, so you'll see, you go to Twitter, right? And you'll always see these engagement farms like, ooh, look at this project. It's going to 100x. This is the next thing. And what it tries to do is circulate that through the media to attract money. Mm-hmm. No other way to put it. And then, so it's like you have some people that have built a reputation on being able to have some sort of alpha because they have their mailing list or whatever follower list, and they circulate something that may or may not be true or practical or whatever. But if it gets enough people,
momentum,
ultimately the market is the best marketing machine, right? So if people start to buy it, then the price moves, and then more people see it, and it kind of creates this whole thing. And sometimes I'm just going to say then they dump on each other, right? Then there's a new trend, right? Now we're done with the AI and we're going to go to the next, shiny thing.
Yep.
And it's just important to note also in that scenario, it's the fastest to exit are the ones not left holding the bags as well. There's always going to be a bag holder. So
it's like a game of musical chairs, essentially. And the thing that always drives me a little nutty about that is if you look at the underlying product, is there a potential use for AI in that? Yes. Is that going to take a lot of development, serious questions? Is that a big engineering project? Yes. And do investors and people approach it with that level of maturity? No.
No. If you the one that is really getting me right now is Singularity Net. Just because if you look at the Singularity Net marketplace, if you go on there and see what their platform actually is, it's pretty appalling. I don't know. I can say that because I'm not. I've my words mean nothing here, but I think their coin is at number 70 now total.
I have no idea.
And it's what are we doing? I don't get it.
I don't know. I to be honest, I don't know like that particular product or ecosystem, but that's the general trend. We've seen that over and over and over again, where the hype and focus on hyper-capitalization and the trend outweigh any practicality, any technological use case, and then people get burned. Like there's no other way to put it. It's I'm not a fan of that. Now, in terms of community growth, there's actually interesting use cases on that side of like marketing, right? Whether it's you can look at like culture on blockchain, whether it's art or music. Like there's a certain utility to building a grassroots community, right? But then the goal of that is not to, basically front run everybody, exit and dump on them and leave, right? It's to build something that is valuable, that creates kind of a nice economic framework that's viable over the long term, that it leads to kind of growth in culture, collaboration, expression, and ultimately value. And we don't see a lot of that, unfortunately, in crypto. A lot of the times we just see like, read this thread for the next 10x, guys. And, the reality is, do any of these people actually dig into the code base, or do they just regurgitate marketing shit? They just regurgitate marketing shit.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing, and it drives me mad, and you see it time and time again. I've mentioned it numerous times, like the whole speculative side of the industry, and you create the hype and the momentum, people hyper to capitalize, and it's just a race to get out at the top whenever the top's called. And obviously people will be there holding the bags. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of those people who may not understand the industry enter late, and they're the bag holders. And by burning them, like they go and cry scam and all that sort of stuff. Like you lose interest in the industry as a whole. Like for one, we've just attracted them into the industry. They've taken interest, and then the poor souls have just had their asses handed to them on a trading platform because they don't understand the industry and how it can be sort of breakneck in that respect. Sorry, and it's sad to see, unfortunately.
No, it is. It's a greedy space. There's no other way to put it. It's kind of very.
It's kind of funny that like when people talk about marketing in crypto, that this is what they're referring to, because it's not really marketing. It's
There's
like
no substance.
It's like,
in my opinion, it's deceptive. You're trying to basically create hyper-capitalization of something that you probably don't understand, have any long-term attachment to. It's kind of like selling beans to the next person, I guess.
Yeah, it's just kind of Ponzi-nomics trying to
that irritates. That irritates me. They say, "Oh, Ergo and it's marketing." Yeah, I try to talk about real things and discuss them from like the perspective of, if we want to create long-term value, if we want to create kind of a growth and type of culture and actually build tools that are more sustainable and useful, how do we do that versus just try to upsell everything instead of deliver?
Yeah, make the number go up.
Yeah, it's valuable in the short term, but it doesn't really utilize this technology well. Like blockchain is the idea that we can interact and create this unstoppable global economy that's open, fair, transparent, and has tools that can deliver value to people just with potentially an internet connection. That's a really cool idea, right? But then how do we do that in a way that, I don't know, has honor and instead of just like
selling your soul,
our sales tactics?
Yeah. And it's kind of a double-bladed sword too, because what you find is with a lot of these projects that their sole focus is on flashy, empty marketing, after a while there's no real community there, and it's just a ghost town. It's like even if there is a product delivered, it's like nobody cares, because you weren't trying to grow a community that actually cared about it.
Yeah,
that's one thing I love about our ecosystem here at Ergo. It's like really close knit, open and engaging, and always informative as well. Like if someone asks a question, it's not sort of like, even depending on, just pick a platform, whether it's Reddit, Discord, Twitter, blah blah blah. If someone has a genuine question, you'll see 3 or 4 or 5 people jumping in there and providing pretty substantial, like in-depth sort of technical answers, and that's just from the community as a whole. And that's what I love to see as well. Like we do have that grassroots sort of community built up.
Yeah, I think we have people that show up with passion, and hopefully we have a diverse enough tool set that a lot of people can pursue whatever their passion is. I think like Mick is a good example with what he's doing with Blitz.
Mm-hmm.
He's passionate about that. He does it because he loves it, right? He's not trying to dump on people. He's trying to do something that he wants to play his own game. If you get into like the culture that can create, I think that's a huge net positive. The same thing is true with like, I don't know, you get into the culture side of NFTs, whether it's art. Art can lead to very powerful communities. It can also lead to like some elitist garbage communities. And we see that on and off chain. There's no big difference in my opinion. The same is true with music, right? Grassroots music can be an awesome thing. It can certainly, that's a nice way to get people together off chain potentially. So how do we organize and ultimately take the technology and make it more useful and practical in the real world, rather than just DeFi in a lot of ways has been people trading different tokens with each other in their basements. Right?
Yeah, just trying to be the last, not trying to be the last one to leave the burning building.
But that whole hypothecation and everything that we've seen in the last sort of 12 months and the fallout, the shit show that everything's happened there, like we've all sort of seen what's happened, haven't we? Unfortunately.
I honestly think that human nature doesn't change. Maybe toys do, right? So I assume that lesson has been learned by a few individuals, but as a whole, it'll repeat. Now the question is whether you'll have the same amount of money that's chasing it, or whether it will be like a smaller phenomenon, or will it continue to grow? I don't know. But being around crypto, we've seen that a couple of times where markets start to get like way too hot, and you have all these ideas that are just going to revolutionize everything, and then it blows up.
Yeah. And you see you see what's left standing, like anything of substance. And the biggest thing that you can't replicate, and like what Noah was mentioning, is community. So you see all these things with smoke and mirrors and hype and all kinds of shit going on, and ultimately what's left behind is there's just dust. There's nothing. There's no. They might have a product, but there's no one using it. They don't have a user base, and I don't know, have a bit of fanfare, I guess you could probably call it. But the community that runs and rallies around behind everything, that's what like adds value and substance to a project.
Yeah, I think there's a nice use case to use blockchain as just like the back end of financial logic off chain. And you get either the mobile experience locked in, most likely mobile. I mean, we already see that with Apple Pay and that type of thing off chain. It's really not that great of a leap to where technology is already kind of trending towards. You just have a different back end, and then you need to get the user experience to the point where people don't really know or notice. Difficulty with that is usually the payment rails, like the gateway. How do you get from one currency to another? Smoothly, quickly, whatever. That's still an open question. But the reality is, I do think that there's a market enough that someone will come up with some good solutions to that, because whenever there's a profit incentive there, someone will try to step up and close that gap because there's an incentive. And I do think that there's enough of an incentive to try to create that we'll see more good attempts. Right now, most of the attempts that we've seen, in my opinion, are pretty crappy because they're like, hey, I'm going to create Joe token and I'm going to put Joe token in the middle, and then I'm going to swap, whatever currency you give me with Joe token, and then Joe token with the dollar, and, Joe token to the moon. Instead
Take a small cut.
Don't forget the marketing.
Yeah, basically, they use it as some means to pump their own token that they inserted in the middle that really does nothing super efficient to the process other than give them a much larger return than just like a standard fee would.
And in that scenario, all you have to do is basically charge a transaction fee or something like that, sit in the middle. There's no need for Joe token in that respect, but everyone wants to create their own money and everything like that. So
yeah, that's probably the bigger issue that I always have had with crypto, to be honest, is that instead of trying to say, okay, what type of financial logic do we need and how can we make it super useful, it becomes, how can I create a new currency? And then, we have a ton of new currencies that's growing at an ever, basically like rabbits mating pace. And then like the actual back end or the logic of it doesn't really come into play. Right. Instead, we just keep getting new types of money, and then you have new friction and fragmentation, and, rather than saying, okay, well, what type of financial logic would be really useful and how can we support that?
Yeah. Well, what are we up to? Like 20,000+ coins or something at this point in time? So how many of those are actually has use and utility?
That's on like something like Coin Market Cap, but then you have to ask, like, how many people have tried to create their own crap token on any project?
Yeah, I mean, even just in Ergo, there's fucking hundreds of them.
Yeah, there's way too many. Now how many of those have utility, or are they worth the minting fee? Like, that's like the cost of production. So
yeah,
I included a trillion Armenio tokens for 0.001 ERG, and if I never do anything, I just have to be under the assumption that that's worth the 0.001 ERG that it took to create it.
Yeah. Yeah, you go on Signify right now, and we've got a good number of those that people have put up as collateral. It's like, be safe out there, guys. Most of us are not good.
It'll happen, because you get into greed, man. You get into greed. And that's like the one thing about this. I think it's probably the biggest barrier to adoption in this industry is greed.
Yeah, because people get burned, like you said, CW. People get burned, and then they don't want to be a part of it.
Like, speaking to a lot of my friends off chain, like in real life. Yes, I do have in real life friends. Talking to those guys, and like the stories that they bring up, it's all of this sort of stuff, like hype marketing, people getting burned, people making these streams like crazy amounts of money and things like that. And there's no substance there. You know what I mean? Like, they only want to come in, bring on the speculative side of it, make money, jump out and go and do whatever they want to do, sort of thing. Like, but how do you sort of bridge that gap to bring education into it, to inform them of like these like world-changing technologies and revolutionizing the entire sort of financial system of the world and all that sort of stuff? Start talking down those lines, like, I don't give a shit, I just want to make money.
Yeah. Usually I have that conversation, in real life, that I find my industry pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, that's what I say too. I don't even work in the industry, and whenever my friends find out, it's like, yeah, most of it is pretty terrible.
Yeah, it's greedy. It's like the greed. It burns too many people. Like, I would say, to some degree, okay, there's always a winner and a loser in a trade, but so many people come into this space and just get burned by greedy nonsense that we kind of fail in the mission or intent to try to create useful internet tools that are unstoppable, that serve people, rather than just get them to chase a shiny thing and then you're broke.
Yeah, I mean, even outside of the shiny thing and the pumping and dumping and all that, like all of the sort of like institutional greed that we've seen, it's like that's a whole other layer on top of this. When if you know, if you want to talk about marketing, like
Sure, it's a
it's like
small industry.
it's a whole
That
added layer of just destruction.
nonsense. No, it's a small industry. That's the bottom line. Is it came out of Bitcoin not that long ago, like a decade, right? And so if you look at like the people that within the last, I'm going to say 10 to 8, 8 to 10 years that have heavily invested in that type of infrastructure have become super dominant because there's not that many of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very big industry, all things considered. And, there's only a handful of companies, whether it's on the market side or the exchange side, that, okay, they did take big initial risk. You kind of have to take your, hat off to that like, you can look at somebody that spun up Coinbase or Kraken, and especially when, digital assets were super new and sketchy. And, I think they probably certainly reap the reward of being early and taking some risky investments. But then you look around at like the marketing sphere, and it's just not that diverse, right? And a lot of the times, it's incestuous. There's no other way to put it. It's just incestuous. It's the FTX orgy.
Well, it kind of stems on what I was about to bring up and ask a question on around sort of crypto print media or news outlets in a traditional sense. And like obviously we like DCG owning CoinDesk and the narrative there on pushing Ethereum and their, like all that sort of narrative. And then whether you're a flavor of the month, you get sort of highlighted. And then if you're not the flavor of the month or the industry redheaded stepchild, then you just get shat on the whole time.
It's a small club and we're not in it. I mean, that's what it is. It's how it's always been. And to be honest, I don't really care to be. One thing I do like about Ergo is that like we're, I don't know, small and spread out enough that I can come in here, I can say what I think, right? And nobody cares. Hopefully it helps people. They can learn a little bit. Because I do think that the reality is a lot of the journalists in this industry are not developers.
No,
they're people
not.
that they have a background in writing, and perhaps they've done some internet, SEO trafficking and keywords, and their resume is more, I guess, internet search algorithm specific rather than the development specific. So then at the end of the day, how many of them actually know what they're talking about?
Yeah, and
I from my experience, a few.
So in that respect, you've got the technical side, so the developer and everything like that, and that information then needs to be conveyed in a simple enough form for non-tech people, obviously, to be able to decipher and then convey that message. But a lot of the stuff that you see sort of put out is just kind of, I don't know, just in simple terms, blatant bullshit at times. And the thing is about it all, like so many people sort of get on there, they read one article and then that's it, their mindset in regards for life. They won't sort of dive deeper, try and find the truth, or
my favorite
be objective and find out what's going on both sides of the story.
Like the peak ridiculousness that I'll see in crypto, right? And I'll call this out, and I think that realistically everyone should, is when you see two people that are arguing about projects that have tokens, that have zero open code, and all they have is marketing, right? So you have one marketing narrative versus another marketing narrative, and you actually have nothing you can see in the back end, but you do have two tokens that are on the market, and perhaps they're competitive, and people will actually parrot like, oh, this is so great, it's the greatest thing since da da da, and there's nothing there. Like there's no code, you can't see anything, there's no product.
You might have a jazzed up, sort of out of date UI or something like that. And
I've said this before on this show, like the peak ridiculous like thing that just like got me, I don't know, it's both depressing and hilarious at the same time, depending on where I was perspective wise. after you had like the dog coin mania, right? Then you had like a couple of echoes. So in one of the Ergo chat, there was like an argument between like, okay, we're not on like third tier dog coins now. Like, Elon dog Mars versus baby Floki Sheena dog. And, these people are having an argument like which one's going to go up more and which one's a better project and which one, and
it's like, shit, look at yourself in the mirror, buddy.
Yeah, like, what is this? How can that be a serious discussion or argument? And one of them did win, right? And I could ask the question, if AI is the dominant narrative, is that happening on like the third tier AI coins where it has some marketing gimmick that's like, oh, da 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 da, but then if you actually try to look into what's under the hood, there is nothing.
By the time the next bull run happens, this coin's gonna explode.
We're gonna have
that
Joe Coin AI.
Yeah, it's such a gimmick. I don't know. I ignore it. I've kind of become numb to it.
Dude, me too, man. It's honestly like, it gets to you after a while. It makes you fucking hate all this shit so much. Like, it's like I wake up, I go on Twitter, and I just scroll, and I'm just like,
yeah, that's why I don't.
What am I doing here?
I don't go there too much, and I don't really care too much about it.
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, it's a matter of saying, okay, we have these networks, right? They have the abilities to support financial logic. It's the simplest way to put it. And all business, all transactions is some form of logic, right? How can we create them in a way that's easy, accessible, and gives people opportunities to interact with broader markets, right? And then how do we kind of engage and grow that market in a way that's not saying, hey, come and buy our coin so we can dump on you, but hey, we're going to try to continue to deliver value and a better experience to where you can build your business, you can put your time, energy, talent into this ecosystem, and you'll get something in return, not just monetarily, but hopefully you'll move into like a community that in and of itself creates its own economy. That's a very different thing than, hey, move into my neighborhood so I can rob you.
Exactly.
And
in bottom line terms, you put it like that.
The bottom line is a lot of crypto shit is that, like, hey, join our ecosystem so I can rob you.
Yeah, when marketing, make the number go up so then I can get out before you and
stuff and leave.
Yeah. Say it's the world's best neighborhood and everything like that, and
chasing the exit liquidity.
Yeah. Like, I'm not about that. I don't respect it.
I think
I don't respect it.
Yeah. And everything we do here at Ergo, like everything that we put out, it's got substance behind it, like techie articles and everything like that try and break down sort of like sort of hard concepts and things like that, and for the normie people, but there's no hype around it. There's no smoke and mirrors. It's something that's being built or has been built. It's educating people on that to be able to then go out and spread the word and everything. So yeah, everything sort of we talk about here, like we've said it numerous times, always around first principles and manage risk and know your assumptions, all that sort of side of it. Like, it's not the sexy side of marketing. Like, yes, it is. It's getting the word out there. It's getting the brand out there, building brand identity and everything along those lines. But it's just not sort of the scenario that we've just been previously talking about around the hype and fireworks and streamers going off and all that sort of stuff with no substance behind it.
I just think you always have to have two hands in life, right? It's like on one hand, this may be positive, on the other hand, that. maybe not so positive, right? You have to be able to wait and look at trade-offs and, accept challenges. And sometimes in crypto, like the second most ridiculous thing other than, like people fighting over things that have no actual code base, but have a token, I would say is when there's an absolute like blindness to any type of criticism or bias, right? To where, people get so entrenched in like their position that if somebody says something negative about Ergo, it's a personal attack against me and I'm offended. And that's
the crazy thing too is like it even extends to like founding members or devs. Like people become ravenous apologists for anything that is even like partially related to the project, just because they don't want bad news about something that will make
Don't
the
call
value
my
of
child
their
ugly.
yeah. It's just, don't fud my bags. It's really what it is. Like
no, but you have to take criticism. We'll always get it. Like this is the end. There is no winning. You can never win on the internet. Nobody's ever gonna like be happy with everything. That's the best you can do is show up, try to, build stuff, do your best, and you're always going to get crap for it. And some of that actually, I think, is valid, right?
Yeah, it can be a good thing.
I think some of it is a matter of saying, okay, can you take criticism on the chin and say, hey, maybe we can rotate, do better, and then on the other hand, the easiest job in life is to be a critic because you really never have to carry anything,
especially on the internet as well. You can sit behind a pseudonym or something like that, just fire things off.
You're the armchair sports master,
But it's an important point there. You guys both mentioned being able to sort of take criticism and things like that, because ultimately, if you only hear all the positives and things like that, you're not going to improve at any point in time. So criticisms, constructive, sort of blatant, straight out, sort of wild allegations and things like that, all sort of have to be taken hand in hand and filtered through and everything like that to be able to sort of take that, build on it, and then improve.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is whenever you get into human dynamics, some people get along, some people don't.
Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, the economy is based on voluntary transactions, right? And so then it's a matter of saying, okay, well, if you want to create a business, you do have to not only create a certain value to your customer, but to a certain degree, you do need to show them a degree of respect and care and courtesy, right? I think that's pretty practical off chain. I don't know why it would be any different on chain. So there's a lot of complexity there. I do think that over time, things will trend towards use rather than like just net social value.
Hope
but
so.
That will take time. And the difficulty is, oh God, there's so much upselling in this space.
When product.
There's so much upselling. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Once again, is there anything behind it? Is it smoke and mirrors? Is there an open Git? Is there open source? Is there anything substantial behind the product other than a flashy UI that's made in Figma that has no use or utility or operation? You know what I mean? Like, that's what it all comes down to. And yeah, it's unfortunate at times.
The real question to ask is, okay, post product, how do you build a community?
Yeah,
post product, how do you make that product more valuable and kind of refine it to its market fit? Make the user experience better, make it so that it onboards people, make it so they understand it. There's way more value on that side than just trying to rally the troops before you even have anything.
Well, usually that is just trying to generate funds.
Yeah, it is.
In that case, it's like get people in so that the project can be the ones that dump. that's
That's
it's not
true.
all. It's not always like that, but it does happen, and
I mean, we can't say that it doesn't happen. And I really hope that long term. Okay, a governance is always messy, right? There's no I don't know, even like I'm sure you and your girlfriends or wives, pick a place to eat, and sometimes it's messy to come to the conclusion where to go to eat, right?
No comment.
she just lets me pick. She doesn't want anything to do with it.
I'm not saying a thing.
Yeah, he's not going to get in trouble. But yeah, governance can be messy, right? And when you're talking about I don't know, people's funds, joint cooperative businesses, it's going to get messy. But hopefully long term, it's not a matter of saying how do we sell this before we launch. It's a matter of how do we refine this so that it's useful and it's a viable long-term business plan, not just we made a product and now we're dumping on our community and we market hyped it and now we're out the door. And who knows, maybe in 2 years we'll spin up a new project, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
The thing I like about the Ergo ecosystem is, and I've mentioned this a couple of times also, what initially sort of brought me in and I found really attractive is the lack or want of tokenization. And that's going back a couple of years now, but I can definitely see the need for raising funds and everything like that. But the way Ergo projects sort of go about it is completely different to the way the industry sort of does it for the most part. And you basically kind of get a proof of concept, somewhat of a sort of like a minimum sort of viable product and things like that, get it out there, get it into beta, and then they'll go and chase and try and raise funds. And I think that's pretty unique and special to the Ergo ecosystem.
Open source code is valuable. I think ultimately it breaks down to that single point, is that if you look throughout the ecosystem, like there's a lot of end-to-end open source code, whether it's the contract or the off-chain code. And even where there's not, there's a commitment to, right? Like Auction House, said, hey, we're going to get to that point, and okay, I'll take them at their word, and I'll assume that at some point they will. I think that transparency in terms of actual product development is the difference, because in a lot of other ecosystem, nobody cares. I hate to say it, nobody cares. Like, where's your GitHub? Where's your open source code? Like, oh, we don't have any. It's like, well, then how are you decentralized?
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
You know what it is, Joe.
I know exactly. It breaks down to this, in my opinion. This is unpopular as hell, but I'll say it. If I can't independently verify it, it's a scam. If I can't independently verify it, I have to assume it's a scam. Now, are there some exceptions to that where perhaps you have people that have been around and they have reputation, and so you can kind of assume, okay, this person is relatively trustworthy based on experience, sure. But if you can't verify something, I would assume it's a scam. Assume there's something wrong, right? Assume there's a back door. Assume there's an error there. Assume perhaps your keys are not quite your keys. Like if you can't independently verify something, that is a serious red flag. And in this industry, that's not the case anymore. People don't care because the flash marketing on the front obfuscates the fact that all of your trust is going basically into a black box that you can't even understand. And there might not even be a black box to trust.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty big point, actually, especially in self-custody and wallets and stuff like that, because ultimately we've saw sort of what happened with like all the people locking up funds with like BlockFi and what's the other one, like Celsius and numerous other things like that. And in regards to sort of wallets and things, like, is there a difference there? Like, on a wallet front, yes, you've got a seed phrase for one, but ultimately yes, you can restore that in a different wallet, but do you ultimately have custody of your coins and things like that at any given time, or is it sort of just a UI showing that you've got funds and it's sort of tallied on a spreadsheet somewhere, or who knows?
Who knows? It's like if you had a blockchain, but you didn't have the ability to run a node. You didn't have the ability to independently audit and verify the network. It's not a blockchain. Assume it's something very different, right? And unfortunately, when we get into like logic on top of these systems, that same principle and mindset doesn't extend. Yeah. Right. And I don't know. That's I guarantee like there will be people that are offended to hear that the basic assumption is if you can't independently verify something, it's a scam. But how many people would be in better condition if they followed that rule? And how much shit would actually get delivered that creates value if people, really stuck to that as their base line of like, I will support this if I can independently verify it and independently run it.
Yeah, that's what I was about to extend to there as well, is being able to locally run it yourself. So then there's all the big hype and narrative around the D in front of app. Obviously around decentralization. This is decentralized, that's decentralized. My product's more decentralized than yours, and it's closed source and running who knows where. So being able to sort of run that code locally, spin it up, build and compile the code yourself, that's what ultimately sort of drives these resilient platforms and is ultimate decentralization.
And it's hard to push for that when you have a majority of the user base that doesn't care, that just wants the number to go up. That in a way, it's like greed has created its own self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
they don't care.
Most people just don't give a shit.
Yeah, they don't care about that type of verification. They don't care about that type of work and self-responsibility. And so what happens? They extend their risk to where they're irresponsible and they're not verifying things, and then they get burned. Like, are they a victim to that? Maybe. I think depending on how predatory some of the marketing and messaging is, certainly there are people that beat the drum to attract exit liquidity. But then on the other hand, are people responsible for their own choices? Yes, that's the entire premise of this industry. And if you want to be responsible for your choices, that's a great first assumption, is if you can't independently verify it, you can't independently run it, it's a scam.
Slap that one up on the Ergo website.
Yeah, that'll make them popular. Shit.
People have the pitchforks.
Yeah, people can come at me for the pitchforks because the bottom line is at the end of the day, it's true.
Well,
that's why we've got CW working on marketing now.
Yeah,
just tone it down a little.
But yeah,
it's like obviously we drive home these principles and the first principles narrative and like one of the big things, Kush, you just released a paper on it on the cryptographic side of it, is the assumption side. And ultimately, if people look at blockchain, the industry as a whole, from these perspectives, from first principles, what are the products aiming to do and what's the use case, utility and things of them? But then also on the flip side of that, knowing the assumptions, operating within these sort of the frameworks and knowing what you're getting into, you could save a lot of heartache. But ultimately, as long as number goes up.
You couldn't have cryptography. It wouldn't work without having, let's say mathematical proofs or assumptions of certainty, right? And it wouldn't work. If we're going to call it crypto, we should really take that mindset of like, how do we assume this is true?
Yeah.
And then, build with that principle in mind. I do think that is it more painful? Yes. Is it less sexy? Yes. But it is also a system that's better at protecting users.
Yeah.
That's the bottom.
That's what it's about.
At the end of the day, that's why I say, let's focus on first principles, is because it protects people rather than exploits them.
Yeah.
And if you get rid of all the trust assumptions and you're just like, trust me, bro, this is decentralized, exchange oracle that has protocol liquidity and, on top of a master node, and that you just get like word salad and no back end. It's doesn't protect people.
Yep.
Slap as many buzzwords in there as you can get, and you got a good marketing pitch.
Now it's AI. I forgot that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
mate,
AI.
joke
AI
on
green.
AI metaverse, flywheel, DeFi printer, NFT, legendary,
Green, environmentally friendly.
ESG compliant. Oh
Yes.
God.
Anyway.
Anyway, that's not a popular thing to say, but the reality is, if we want to build something that's around for the long term and actually is able to support and deliver tools that build economic value and build culture, you have to protect users. Otherwise, who would want to use it? Who would want to move into that economy?
Yeah, exactly. Like I sort of mentioned, bringing new people into the industry, getting them operating, getting comfortable, knowing what's going on and things like that. And ultimately, we're here to change people's lives, open up sort of the banking system, the financial system, give them financial tools that they might not necessarily have available to them. And it kind of gets me fired up a little here. And I don't want to go on a rant in that respect, but yeah, it's frustrating.
I still get excited about it. Even though there's all this greed, because there's always that greed in any market. There's always that greed. Like, that's just a part of the human condition, right? You can't escape that. But on the flip side, like there are a lot of good people in the world that I think if you deliver tools that will allow them to collaborate and connect and create value and interact and build culture and transact, people will do it. Especially because a lot of the systems that exist in the world are predatory.
Yeah.
And so just having a system that, is more transparent and less predatory, that is a great use case. You don't need all of this hypey bullshit. Just do that. Deliver a product and then refine it, make it usable and trustworthy and less predatory to where people get to keep the value of their work more or transact easier. They'll use it. We don't need the mad.
Yep.
Very well said, mate. And I think that's probably a good way to sort of wrap this up. Obviously, we could go on for hours upon hours on our opinion of this sort of side of the market. But we might wrap that up here. Is there any sort of last words that we want to get into?
Yeah, I'll be off Twitter for like a week once this drops because it probably will piss people off.
If you want to find Joe, he'll be in Telegram.
Yeah. I think I froze.
Yeah, that's a nice face you got there, Joe.
He's out already. No, is there any sort of last words there, mate?
I got nothing. I've been laughing too much. I got nothing to add.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty funny industry, and you laugh, you cry, you celebrate, you commiserate. You see all the emotions here in crypto. So just like to say that. But everyone, thanks everyone for tuning in once again. It's been a pleasure chatting about the marketing aspect in regards to the industry as a whole. And Noah Armenio, he's back. He's back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Just wrapping it up here, mate.
Wrapping it up. Listen, I think there's a lot of potential, right? But if you want to, I think if we really want to maximize that potential and reach it, not just in Ergo, but as a broader market, you have to detoxify a lot of the crap that prevents that from being reached. And the primary driver of that is just baseless greed.
Yeah, unfortunately so. All right, everyone. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure chatting once again. It's been a fun topic to discuss at length. Everyone, thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one.
Yep. See you next week.